Books full of inept dialogue tags get published all the time. Of course they do. Not all published writers are good writers. Dean Koontz.
You're listening to Writing Roots, brought to you by Aspen House Publishing.
Welcome to Writing Roots. I'm Lee Hull.
And I'm Lee Esses.
We are continuing today talking about myths in the writing world. Today's topic is the phrase, said is dead.
I've heard several different sides of this particular debate. Some are saying use every word except said in conveying information to your readers. And then the others are saying only use said and dialogue tag everything.
They're all wrong. If you are wondering what we mean by dialogue tag, that is the phrase that happens either before or after.
Sometimes during.
Yep, sometimes during a quote, a piece of dialogue that lets the reader know who is talking. Both Lee and I are fans of action dialogue tags. This means there is no said, no asked, no word to indicate that they talked, but an action to indicate who is talking. So you'll have the quote, yeah, I'm going to go to the store, and then the dialogue tag, Bree picked up her purse and pulled out her keys. Do you need anything to finish it off?
That not only communicates an action and communicates to the reader that Bree's the one talking, but it also gives you, the author, an opportunity for subtext. No, I don't think she's pretty. He ran his fingers through his hair. Why would you say that? These action tags are incredibly helpful in adding layers and depth to your characters.
Sometimes you can't always do an action. Sometimes you need the quick efficiency of just saying said. The reason the myth said is dead exists is because, yes, sometimes there are better words. There are better ways to put a dialogue tag into your book.
Another reason why people say don't use said is because the word is utterly invisible to your readers. If they're not seeing it, then why have it in there? More on that in a moment.
And I think the biggest reason why this myth exists is because new authors especially, but not always new authors, sometimes it's published writers that do this, they just want to be flowery and pick better words that just, why?
If you only get one thing from this episode, please understand that no words are superior to others. There is a right time and a wrong time to use any word. So the quote-unquote better word only happens if it's actually a better time to use that tool.
And not just because you don't want to use said again. So there are several things that disprove this myth. And to me, one of those is actually why the myth exists in the first place. It is that said is invisible. Said is a placeholder to make a sentence complete, but it doesn't distract the readers. If you go using super flowery words, then it draws their attention to that word rather than the dialogue. So said is a perfect thing to put, the perfect word to put in most cases if that's what you need in a dialogue tag.
Have you ever heard of the book series Harry Potter?
Yeah, I think so.
It turns out, somebody actually did the math on this, which I admire their boredom. Somebody counted that the word said is used 14,398 times in the series. If said was dead, that number would be much smaller.
Like our opener said, there are inept dialogue tags everywhere, but you really can't go wrong with just simply using said.
As a reader, I am far more likely to get annoyed by someone going, he exclaimed. There's a moment in Harry Potter where it goes, Slughorn ejaculated.
Ron does that a couple of times too. She really likes that word. So yes, she may have used said 14,000 times, but she also used some really bad dialogue tags along the way.
So there was definitely room for more said in the series. But as a reader, I don't get bothered by the word said. I get bothered by other tags in place of said.
So Lee, what do you do generally in dialogue tags? What's your preference, your second preference?
I try to avoid dialogue tags at all costs. It should be clear to the readers who's saying what. If there are only two people in the conversation, it's fairly simple to follow. The word choice should also make sense for the characters. If I have to identify the character in some way, I make sure I'm putting that dialogue tag in certain moments, often in the middle of the line, where the character would pause. And that dialogue tag is often an action, so it won't come in the middle of a phrase or a thought. But where the character would pause, the reader is then pausing to read the dialogue tag, even if it's super brief. And the amount of text in that dialogue tag changes depending on how long I want the reader to pause between the first part of the line and the second part. What about you?
I love the word said. It is great, it is useful, and I will never stop using it. It is efficient. It's about conveying the most information in the fewest words. All you have to do, he said, she said, Bree said, they said, I said, whatever. There are times where I will use something else. My second favorite dialogue tag word, instead of said, is asked. Pet peeve of mine, I've seen a couple of authors do this, where they will have a question with a little question mark, and then say, so-and-so wanted to know. Obviously they wanted to know, or they wouldn't have asked the question. So it distracts me from the question itself, because I'm wondering, yeah, I know that already. I see the question mark.
If you want to put weight on the question, mentally paraphrase the question. Well, is she bringing dinner or am I? And then ask in the dialogue, what's for dinner? You can add extra weight to the dialogue by having outside of dialogue information beforehand. You do it afterward, it feels redundant.
Another pet peeve of mine are those lists that you'll see circulating around writing forums and on Pinterest that say 100 words to use instead of said. No. While some of those words are very good words, they are very, very specific in their use. They are used to convey some kind of specific emotion or specific moment that, yes, you can use that word, whatever it is, but make sure it is right. This is the same reasoning we have when Lee and I say we don't like using a thesaurus. Because yes, they technically mean the same thing, but with different connotations.
You don't want to use a needlessly complex word when said does the job just fine. Efficiency of speech, and sometimes the reader not even seeing the word, is incredibly helpful in getting your readers to speed through and chew up page after page and stay up till the middle of the night to read your book.
If you're wondering what word to actually use, whether the right word is going to be said or whether the right word is going to be something else, if you're using an adverb with said, try finding a more accurate word. So if you say, she said quietly, just say, she whispered.
Often volume indicators are a good deviation from said. So shouted if you especially aren't a fan of the exclamation point. Whispered anytime you're trying to say announced. These type of words tell how they're saying it, not just the emotion behind what they're saying.
And I really like this quote from Stephen King. You probably have told your story well enough to believe that when you use he said, the reader will know how he said it, fast or slowly, happily or sadly. If you are writing well enough, the dialogue, the emotion, the action around it, said is just fine.
You don't need to attach emotion to how they say something if what they're saying is emotional in and of itself. That does come with skill, and so until then saying he sneered, fine. But it should be obvious in the I can't believe you're this, that he is sneering as he's saying it.
And it's like we say when we're talking about showing versus telling. If you want to convey emotion, show the emotion, show the action, show it in the words. Don't tell us that they are feeling mad or that they're feeling sad. Show us why they're mad. Show us why they're sad. And throw that emotion into the word choice that you use.
Sometimes it helps to write or especially edit yourself as a reader. So when you are reading out there, look at what you enjoy, what you have fun with, what you notice, and what you don't. I think you'll find that only after this episode will you start noticing the word said.
And you'll notice that a lot of your favorite authors use said quite frequently.
So maybe start second guessing yourself when you're using those big flowery words and ask yourself, what is lost if I just use said instead?
Because said is not dead. A lot of what we've talked about can be applied in the editing phase. Write how you feel right now, get the words on the page however it is that you need to get them on the page, and then fix things later. Because as you're writing in your first draft, you should be
writing selfishly.
If you have a question or comment for our hosts or a topic you'd like us to cover, send us an email at writingroots@aspenhousepublishing.com or find us on Facebook by searching for Aspen House Publishing.